my friend today, he sent me like an interesting tweet. Well, basically, he says everyone strives to become an entrepreneur to reach freedom, only to realize that like you're kind of even more busier than you were before, you know. And I feel like
Mm.
that's something that's goes vastly under like recognized. That it doesn't, I don't feel like people talk about that much. Everyone likes the highlights of entrepreneurship because it seems so flashy, but I feel like people don't talk about how busy it could be, and that can actually deter you from having that freedom. So I'm curious to learn, what has that been like for you, you know?
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was going to say before you gave that
Yeah.
example. Because what I've learned is that if you have a history of burnout and overworking and
Yeah.
work addiction, which I do, then you will bring that to whatever else you end up doing. So we
Mm.
tell ourselves, like, oh, it was that job, it was that environment, it was that boss, it was that company, it was that country, whatever. But it's not that. It's you. Like,
Yes.
you are allowing these things to encompass your life. You are taking on all this extra stuff. You're kind of used to things being chaotic and busy, and like you're used to being overstretched and stressed out and all these things. And you keep recreating that same environment no matter what you're doing. And
Yeah.
that's what happened to me when I first started entrepreneurship. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm just busy and burning out in all these other ways
Yeah.
that I wasn't before. And then I would tell myself, like, well, I have to put in the work now because in the future it will be easier. But then I realized, like, the future is not coming because I'm creating the future and I'm going to keep creating this environment for
Yeah.
myself. And so then I learned that, okay, there's a lot more healing that has to be done
Sure.
because there's a reason why I'm gravitating towards like this frantic, like doing all the things and staying busy. I'm avoiding my feelings and I'm kind of busying myself. And it's my way of kind of going back to my childhood, like reliving those same experiences where I have to earn love and affection and attention.
Mm.
I have to prove that I'm good enough. I have to be better. I'm not good enough. Like, it was coming
Mm.
from that not good enough energy. And what really helps me is to have coaches, mentors, people who I listen to, people who I watch, who have turned that upside down, and they've said, you know, they talk a lot about like the worth that we have inherently and how that doesn't come from how much we do. They talk about
Mhm.
how being successful is not about doing a lot of stuff. It's not. It's the opposite of that. It's like
Yeah.
being very smart and very careful with not, like, how can I earn this much while working this much, and
Yeah.
doing what we love and being more like ourselves. And so I follow people who have those newer mentalities, and I question the older mentalities, and I
Mm.
actively work on the newer ones. And it fluctuates a lot because I think when there's a lot of stress around us and there's things going on in our personal lives, we revert back to what we know. And
Yeah.
then we find ourselves burned out again or getting
Yeah.
sick or whatever. And then we have to come back to ourselves and realize, like, okay, I'm falling into this pattern again. Like, how did this happen? Like, what triggered this? And
Yeah.
how can I recover from that? What do I need to express? What do I need to work on? What support do I need? And then it all becomes easier again. So I feel like I go in and out of it because I have that awareness now of when I am in the zone and when I'm just doing for the sake of doing.
Yeah.
And it really does require ongoing effort, and it's not easy.
I empathize and I understand. It's why I brought the topic up, because one thing about entrepreneur, like, you know, a lot of people who want to become entrepreneurs or start, they're attracted to it because they come from a 9 to 5, and you know, for whatever, they may not like their job or whatever, and they, you know, they want more time on their hands. But I feel like oftentimes, like, once you become an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, then you have to do the marketing, you have to do the sales, you have to build trust with your clients, then you have to build a team, and this is all like so much at once, which you are able to do successfully. But I feel like oftentimes at the beginning at least might require more than 40 hours. And so I feel like it's something that goes often understated. And I'm glad you shared that. For those who are listening and are working towards becoming an author of their lives, what advice would you give to someone who's aspiring to just be able to create their life, or, you know, the way they would like?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to do all the things we were talking about. Like, you've really got to uncover the truth behind all the reasons why you do what you do. You've got to know what you value and what you don't value. You've got to be really honest with yourself
Yeah.
about that. You've got to look at the people who are around you, if they're encouraging you or if they're holding you back. You've got to have people who you can aspire to be like. You've got to have like
Yeah.
things that you can watch, things you can do to help you move towards, what you want. And you've just got to constantly be stopping and reflecting and looking back
Hmm.
and thinking, like, was that good? Was that not good? Like, why did that feel so good? Why did that
Yeah.
feel so bad? And
Yeah.
you just have to make that a part of your life, is to
Yeah.
be reassessing and recalibrating all the time, because we're not the same people that we were a year
Yeah.
ago. I mean, when you were in the program, you were completely
Yeah.
different. I was completely different. Like,
Yes.
we've been evolving on our own,
Yes.
trajectory, and then we've
Yes.
come back together to do this. Who knows
Yeah.
where we're going to be 5 years from
You're
now?
right.
And so we can't compare our present selves to our past
Yes.
selves, but we can imagine our future selves, and
Yeah.
what did we have to do, or who did we have to be to get to that place where
That.
we want to be.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the who do I have to be to get here is really what drives me forward now. And so, whenever I'm thinking about goals or the future, it's much more about how I'm showing up and
Okay.
who's around me, and the language I'm using, and like the way that I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's not about the tactical stuff. You just
Okay.
have to kind of take that off the table and focus more on who you are and who you want to be, and it makes things a very different journey.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's interesting to see how we grow. As you were speaking, it reminded me like because you're constantly self-reflecting, and I like to journal. I don't know if you journal, but for me, it just helps me be aware of my thoughts, what matters to me, what feels good, what doesn't. Because I don't want to. I like you beautifully mentioned like we're not always the same people, and we're just constantly evolving. So I want to
Mhm.
keep up with my growth.